Vampire Hunters 2 is one of the most toxic games I've ever played. It was the Wild West of video games. Hackers fighting hackers, every player cheating, and absolutely no rules. The main developer would actually go on to cite the toxic community as the reason he shut the game down. It was a battleground where every player is fighting for any unfair advantage they could get in a game with absolutely no competitive incentive. If there was a Roblox game to represent anarchy, this would be it. I don't know anyone that looks back on this game fondly, but beneath all the nonsense, there is a genuinely fun and challenging game that abused the Roblox engine as much as possible. Every glitch, exploit, strategy, and mechanic Roblox had was up for grabs. The game was completely unprotected. Some of the tech can still be replicated today, but most of it was lost over time, with Roblox updates constantly fighting glitches that could be widely abused across their platform. Vampire Hunters 2 is still heavily disliked today, but it constantly made its way to the front page of Roblox and was almost as much of a mainstay as Murder Mystery 2. These two games are very similar, but if you aren't familiar, I'll explain what made Vampire Hunters 2 as a concept more interesting and unique. These games are easy to confuse with other social deduction games, but it's actually a derivative of the game mode called Murder on Gary's mod. With one vampire out to kill all the innocents and one sheriff to hunt down the vampire, these two roles sound pretty familiar. But Vampire Hunters couldn't play out more differently. Instead of social deduction, at the highest level of play it becomes a very complex game of aim, glitches, outplays, wits, and complete degeneracy. In Vampire Hunters, it is possible to slowly deduce the vampire or even stealthily kill the entire lobby as the vampire. But this never actually plays out. First off, the win condition for the town can only be achieved if one of two things happen. Either the sheriff guns down the vampire or daylight comes around. With no voting, the game comes down to both sides' technical skill with Roblox movement. Players have innovated an infinite number of ways to dodge hit scan bullets or hungry vampires using nothing but the Roblox engine itself. This sounds cool and all, but what about the bystanders? They have no way to defend themselves and can only pick up the gun if the sheriff gets caught. They are completely helpless, and the vampire understands they have the potential to become a sheriff. So what can they do? Actually a lot of things, but to keep things simple for now, a civilian can try hiding. It's possible to squeeze into many hard to see or reach places and wait out the night. But no matter where a player might feel safe, if they are inside the map, they are hiding wrong. But hiding is a viable strategy if you do it right. And by the right way, I mean abusing every Roblox glitch in the encyclopedia. Starting with the two most common options being dance clipping and corner clipping. Dance clipping or similar things to it are still usable today in many Roblox games. It's just less common now because builders and developers are more aware of it. But back then this was a major glitch in Roblox because it was very easy to find clippable walls, especially since builders commonly modeled glass in a way that was thinner than 0.9 studs. Dance clipping requires a wall this thin and it's as simple as timing a shift lock to go right on through it. And in Vampire Hunters, well, most of the maps are loaded with glass, completely vulnerable. Clipping through a wall to escape a hungry vampire was a funny outplay, but this was mostly abused to glitch outside the map to hide. Corner clipping served basically the same purpose, but was more powerful than dance clipping. Roblox obviously got around to patching the more overpowered glitch out, but these two glitches remained a problem for almost the entirety of Vampire Hunter's lifespan. Some glitch spots were better than others, but if a vampire couldn't find you inside the map, you best believe they start looking outside of it. Since cheating was a norm, even hiding outside the map can still end up with you dead. But I did say hiding was viable, so what more can you do? Well, civilians can start a match with items bought in a shop to improve their chances of survival. Medkits, weapons, tools, but none of these could stop the vampire on their own. But what it did do was open the door for more degeneracy. Since this was old Roblox, most of these items could be dropped and picked up by anyone. This allowed for a tech known as a gear jump. You can do this by dropping an item in your hotbar and jumping off it midair. With this double jump, it was possible to reach spots that are inaccessible otherwise. Vampires cannot spawn in with an item like civilians, so they need to rely on a teammate for a buddy jump to reach these spots. But a vampire can only infect the first person they kill, and if their vampire buddy dies, they would need to rely on cross-teaming with a civilian to give them an item. But all of these hurdles are surprisingly not a problem, because while they are sucking the life out of a soon-to-be vampire, a civilian usually drops all of their items right before they convert, so the newly formed vampire duo gets access to items which were usually just heals. This was the meta strategy, so with vampires running around with medkits to heal gunshot wounds, hiding up high was usually stopped if they had a spare. So a civilian can combine the out of bounds, gear jumps, wall jumps to get into even more degenerate spots. With all of this combined, you finally have good odds that you'll survive the round. But if all of this sounds excessively sweaty for a Roblox game, explaining how to hide does not even begin to explain how degenerate things got. I'm overlooking a lot of other things like door spamming and this head glitch, because hiding isn't even the most optimal way to play. There are layers of degeneracy in Vampire Hunters, and auto-clicking is the next step up. Vampires are playing the most extreme game of tag, trying to dodge gunfire that can kill them in only one shot. But even after they finally get a hold of somebody, the victim gets a chance to escape by mashing this little bar. On average, most players can escape 2 to 3 times before they die. But with auto-clicking, an escape is super fast and their health is only drained a little bit. So how would a vampire even hope to win? Well, this is Vampire Hunters. There's always something to abuse. One of the most common strategies against people auto-clicking was just re-grabbing them to reset their escape. With a re-grab, the bar will be reset and they'll have to keep mashing from the very beginning, no matter how close they were to finishing. This was pretty toxic, but it wasn't foolproof, even with proper technique. Somehow things only get worse from here. Obviously the next step up after this was not even playing the game, just slash killing the entire lobby, teleporting, shooting through walls while flying, and just treating the game like a sandbox is the best explanation I can give. It wasn't super rare to see 2 people rage hacking against each other. However, since everyone is abusing something to some extent, the most unfair advantage and most likely reason the game died was actually teaming, if you could somehow believe it. All it takes is 2 people who know each other to hold the lobby hostage with no repercussions. A sheriff and vampire duo means there's absolutely no way for the civilians to win except hiding. This basically turned a 15-player game into a 2-player game with 13 spectators. Holding a lobby hostage with a teammate is nothing new on Roblox, but the toxicity this player base had was something entirely different. When every lobby is guaranteed to have at least one person auto-clicking, multiple people knowledgeable on abusing glitches, maybe an exploiter, and you put teamers in the mix, it plays out exactly like those kids' YouTube videos. When everybody is abusing something unfair in the game, everyone feels wronged by the person who is winning. And even those who come out on top are sometimes bitter about how tedious it was to win against all the glitches, hacks, and teams. Being in a lobby with teamers was a guaranteed front row seat to the most dramatic and toxic show a couple of 14-year-olds could put on until finally the lobby would get tired of each other and leave. Despite everything I've said, cheating and toxic strategies wasn't the main gameplay for Vampire Hunters, even if it's a big part of it. Why would anyone want to struggle in a game where cheating is required to play and lobbies are being held hostage on a daily basis? Well, this was the most competitive game of tag Roblox ever had up to this point. There isn't any other game like it on Roblox that enables so much skill expression with such a basic concept, but a lot of the strategy and tech can be applied in other Roblox games because the framework is there. For example, I got my friend to juke in a game called Football Fusion. This basic spin move is really popular, and it's pretty okay. You can also fake a spin, but in general, spins are not great on more experienced players because their movement is just way more efficient and coordinated. There are a lot of other little tricks and feints like spinning in a circle then running in one direction, but mostly anything else I can list off are just different flavors of the same thing. When it comes to dodging bullets and vampires, the movement is a lot more freeform and might require some actual practice to understand. For the first technique, it's as simple as spamming shift lock and using arrow keys to move the camera. The only problem is you have to be running backwards to use this. And when a vampire's camera is facing the wrong way, a detective can easily slip by while they're trying to dodge a bullet that isn't even coming. A lot of this game revolves around these small mind games playing around the reload time and distance. This spin move is not that great on its own and will really only work against people who have never seen it before. But the potential to dodge better comes from adding more tools to your arsenal. If there's one thing this player base is good at besides being toxic, it's making your life miserable in some pretty creative ways.
I know y'all seen that.
By using this spin in multiple directions, not just backwards, you can do some really crazy movement. Everyone has developed their own style of dodging, and I started only using arrow keys like 5% of the time when I'm dodging. Spinning with your camera and shift lock is a lot more difficult and can even make a player easier to hit if they do it wrong. When it comes to doing crazier movements, there are 2 main things to consider. One is how much you are strafing from side to side, and secondly, the timing of your jumps. I see a lot of players under strafe a lot of the time and get shot easily even though their dodges look very fancy. It's actually just making them easier to hit. People even use the sit emote midair, but when they overcomplicate things, they tend to forget the fundamentals of dodging. It's why simple big sweeping strafes like this are still so effective because it is adhering to these things perfectly. The jump timings are almost random and the strafe is wide. He even throws in tiny strafes to make it more random. There are so many more movements that I can't even analyze because what is he even doing and why did that even work? But with the correct timing on spins, it will feel like shooting air because the micro movements will completely throw off shots while the strafe makes tracking a lot more difficult. There's a lot of room for error when you're using your camera to spin, but that just means there's also a lot of room for growth. In this game, there's always the potential to learn more techniques, try new things, or improve on what you're already doing. In the single week that I returned to this game, I started off only using arrow key dodges, but by the end of the week, I was busting out crazy dodges like this. The depth is there to keep learning, and even though I got way better than 14-year-old me was, there were still many more things I could improve. And finally, I could say despite everything, this game was fun. But then I have to remind myself how easy it was to join the game and for it to be unplayable. It's the only game I've ever wanted to play where I could not play it. Server hopping was just jumping into another problem. It wasn't a solution. Part of the game was just trying to play the game. Games are supposed to be something to enjoy. If I wanted to sit in a DMV line, I could. You look at the insane popularity a game like Murder Mystery has despite being more than a decade old and essentially being the same game. Where did it all go wrong? Well, it's the fault of the game for being flawed in so many ways and a complete failure by the player base. This isn't even something new. It's a well-documented tragedy for many other games, not even on Roblox. Poor anti-cheat, poor moderation, and just the type of players these games might attract. But this game means a lot to me, and not because I played it as a kid, trust me, I hate this game, but because it's a shame seeing such a fun concept turned upside down by its player base. It's never that deep over some Lego on a screen to exploit to cover some fragile ego. It's all of our responsibility as the developers to take care of our game, the moderators to police things, and the players to not be stupid. We're all a part of something cool and something we all want to enjoy, so why are we always so hell-bent on turning it into something we hate? I will admit, the remake has fixed the main problems I addressed in the video, and the players have calmed down.
I'm sorry, whoever died.
But the game is still flawed in so many ways I won't even try and cover it all. In its current state, there's no reason for anyone to really play it over other games, but imagine the world of difference it would have made for new players to see a simple sheriff and murderer game instead of a 20,000 word debate between some dudes flying around the map. God, old Roblox was a joke. That's all for me. See you guys later.